these
This
yours?
is okay. This one's all right. Where to look?
Tell Aunt Ruth what you saw in Georgetown.
Oh, yeah,
And that
the marker.
marker,
Marker to a unit?
what'd you see? Tell her about it.
Yeah, because I've
She
never.
saw it.
She
He
hadn't
saw
seen
it.
No,
it.
I don't know
He
about
saw
it.
it, Wilson saw it too? Yeah, because he lives there.
Last letter I got from Marietta, she said, told me that they put a marker up there.
And Hillary's sister Allison, his mom, well, he lives there too. They live in Georgetown, so she took Anna over to the marker and took her picture, but she
Yeah.
hadn't got him back yet.
Mhm. I've got pictures of those tombstones in Kansas, but I don't know where they are. I wish I knew. I could have gotten out some pictures to show the kids, but it just, they took a picture of me standing by
Did
it.
they?
It was a great high stone there that they have. And the name on it is Musty.
Must did a most.
Yeah. And I have a copy of the original marriage license of Nicholas and Otella.
You do?
And it's one place it's musty and another place it's musty. I have it, so that was, I've got a kinfolks in North Dakota, Sorrel Hammond. Been corresponding with her since about 1968, and she is the one that got me in touch with some of the stuff that, but of course Vicky's the one that found where those markers are in Kansas, where the graves are. She got in touch with the Catholic priest there at St. Paul, and that's where the cemetery is there, where those the gravestone is. And we were there, I don't know, it's been 9 or 10 years ago, I guess. Betty and Buddy, when we were going to Virginia, we went up through that way because they wanted to see, and we found the cemetery, didn't have any trouble at all with the directions that Vicki had gotten. We saw that Catholic school and stuff there too. She got her information from, but we didn't stop in there to, I didn't think we'd find maybe the priest who had given her the information, so we didn't try to stop in at their school. Went on, and we crossed that creek. The Mosties live somewhere on it, I don't know just where they live. After they moved down there from Ohio, they lived on that.
You know, Bill Kraft gave us that copies of that at your birthday party of
Yeah.
that house they lived in Heflin, Kansas.
Yeah, they lived.
And I took those copies to have some made, and they say they can't make the laser except off the original. So
That's-
Bill told me that he'll take the original and get some more made
Yeah. Mhm.
whenever I get around to.
Yeah, it's I don't know what you boys and girls want to hear about.
Ask her about what
Just
you.
like what you did when you were a little kid and stuff.
Oh, it's well, we lived on the farm up there just this side of Shriner College there, where they're building the jail, I think now is where the house was that time, and we didn't have things like you have now, no electricity, anything like that. We just lived mostly with what we raised on the farm. We bought flour and sugar and a few things like that, but other than that, we didn't have anything in wintertime like you have now, the vegetables and everything, because we didn't, well, they just didn't have anywhere the frozen stuff like you go in the store there at H-E-B and all the others, see all that stuff. We didn't have it in winter. We had always for Christmas brought a box of apples and a box of oranges. That was about the only fruit you could find in winter, except canned food. And we always had our own canned stuff in the way of fruit. But we didn't can any vegetables because we didn't have the canning stuff. We knew how then.
Papa said y'all used to have people living with you all the time, people that didn't, he said they're hardly ever just your family.
Yeah, the people, they were always helping somebody. People would come here, some of them were sick, and some of them just sort of gypsies going through. And we lived by the railroad track, and that was where the tramps always traveled.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because it was better walking than on the roads. Roads were just gravel and dirt roads and rough. They come up that railroad track, it was smooth in there.
Yeah, I bet they did just jump off the train when they saw y'all's house. Good
Yeah.
thing you had.
They just walked up there to the house, and Mama always gave them sandwiches or whatever she did. But sometimes she had light bread that she made herself, and mostly biscuits, and just if we had any bacon or anything like that left from breakfast, she gave it to them. If not, she just put bread and butter, or we always had preserves and jellies and stuff that she made. She'd give them a jelly sandwich. They'd go on their way. There's nothing that ever bothered us. They just, that's all they wanted was something to eat. Didn't matter, you know. And there used to be a little station, train station there where Shriner College is, and they used to stay in that at nights in wintertime.
You go to Parsons.
I didn't know that. I didn't know there was everything like that.
They had Parsons. Parsons Station.
The
I
Parsons
don't
station.
know what they
That's
call it.
Parsons, that's it.
It was,
Harlan and Jimmy and I used to always play there at that old station.
yeah, it's a little old house there, station house, and it was almost past the college, a little further up where the encampment, that's what it was there for, I think, for that Presbyterian encampment. It was there before Shriner College, and it, we used to sell fruit and stuff to them in the summertime. Had peaches up there, and we'd buy them, and anything like that. They bought milk, sold milk to Pam Pals for their ice cream they made. Milk
Yeah.
and cream.
That's what Anna likes, is that Pam Pals.
Yeah, I remember going along with Derry, we called him. We didn't call him Dad or Papa, he was Derry. I always went with him in the mornings when he delivered that up there.
Did you?
And, well, I never did get any of Pam Pals ice cream.
You never did.
Not while I was a kid. Might have had it after I was grown. I don't think they were making it though that late.
They never did offer you even ice cream cones when you went with your daddy? You know, they used to say at the Curview Farm that what in Wiedenfeld wouldn't give any of the kids. I knew some of the kids that worked for the farm, and they said that he never give them any ice cream. That seemed kind of mean.
When Cheney's first opened up their ice cream thing, they had 2 cones for a nickel. 2 for a nickel. If we went to town with Derry one time, when Polly Hamlin was staying with us, we went to town with him. He gave us a nickel. We went over there and gave us each a cone. That's the way they started in business.
Did they have Tutti Frutti ice creams that long ago? Because that's what they had when I was a kid.
No.
They had all kinds of fruit in it. No, that was my favorite at Cheney's.
No, I don't know what other kind of ice creams they may have had in town, but Pam Bell's was the one we knew about. It was famous. And They had peach and they had strawberry in season. And other than that, I don't think.
Did he make that candy that long ago? Do you remember?
I think so.
Because he made that candy for you
Yeah.
till he got to where he couldn't make it anymore.
Old man Poundale did it at first, and then Milton learned from him.
Yeah, it sure was good candy.
It was, life was sure a different thing. Living on the farm, you didn't have things like you have now.
You think to ask her something about what she played with or something.
Just
Yeah.
homemade toys is what we had. I remember we used to get wheels off of a little, something that had fallen apart, and we'd roll those wheels down the road. They played with such stuff as that. We bought things. My whole life I had 2 dolls that I remember. One was a little thing about that high, one was a little hard, what do they call them?
Kewpie doll?
No, it was just a doll, but it was made, arms didn't move with the legs or anything, you know. And then after I guess I was about 14 years old, 13 or 14, when Uncle Charlie came to see us. He was Jenny Mostey's husband. And he came one Christmas. And we went up to the mercantile store, they call it, Carpenter's, where they had a little of everything. It was there on the corner, catty-cornered from the post office, where all those offices and things are now, right on that corner. And he bought me a doll that had hair and had the arms and the legs moved. It was about this big. Boy, I thought I was on top of the world. Had a pretty doll. That's the only one I ever had.
Did you keep it a long time, or whatever happened to it?
It didn't last too long when Margaret and so grandkids got hold of it. That's the way it ended up.
Yeah.
I kept it as long as I could, because it was something special.
And now kids have all sorts of dolls, and they
Yeah.
don't appreciate as much as
They
having that
don't-
one.
Well, I don't remember having those 2 in my whole life. We just had homemade toys and things. Summertime we used shucked corn. We played with the silks off of it.
And made dolls.
Made things out of it.
We used to make dolls out of corn
Yeah.
shells.
Things like that. We didn't have any stores to go in and just pick up what we wanted. I guess there's a few kids that had money, they could order stuff. I assume Sears, Roebuck, and places like that. And I don't remember ever seeing anything in the stores when I was a kid, except dolls at Christmas. I don't know what they had for boys. I think bicycles or something.
Wagons, probably.
Wagons or something like that. We never had a wagon except homemade one. We had an old baby buggy. Carl and Sam used to run with that thing down the road to finally run the wheels off of it, I think. Playing with it as a wagon. But things were different then, just not like they are now. I don't know if y'all want to hear any history about the ancestors or not. There was
Like
one of the Beans women was captured by the Indians in Tennessee. And they took her, they were going to burn her. And had her tied her to a tree or something, bushes, and then they put the wood around her. And there was a white woman that lived with that bunch of Indians, and she must have had a hold over the chief or something. I don't know what she told him, but she told him something, and so he decided they wouldn't burn her. They turned her loose, and she got back home. But A lot of them weren't that lucky. And the Beans were, there was a bunch of them that lived at Bean Station, Tennessee. And they were Indian fighters, or what they, every time they heard of the Indians stealing horses or killing somebody, they hunted them down if they could. And that Bean Station is named after the Bean family. That was on Mama's side. She was a Bean. Her father was Mark Bean, I guess you all know that. He died when he was 30 years old. And his wife, Belle, married his brother. That was Snap Bean. His name was Tilford, but nobody ever heard of Tilford. He was Snap Bean all his life. Well, they had 8 kids, and there were 2 of Mama had a sister, so that was 10 kids that Belle had. But a lot of them weren't that lucky. Mama's grandfather was Richard Henderson Bean. He had 3 wives. He ended up with 10 kids. Took 3 wives to get that name. The first wife was had Mark Bean, and William Bean, and Tilford, who was nicknamed Snap. And then William Bean, I think he was either the father or the grandfather of Mark Bean that lived at Rock Springs. And Mark Bean, something happened. Fell off of a bluff. They never did know what happened to him. Killed him. But he was Mama's cousin, first cousin. The Beans there were lots of them in the Hewlings. I don't know as much about them. Came from Pennsylvania. There was a schoolhouse in Virginia. William Bean built, and he taught school there. And there was a William Bean that went into Tennessee. It was his wife. Now, I don't know if that was the original William or if he was a son of one in Virginia. I never did know about that school in Virginia until last time I think I was up there. I read about it in the Lynchburg paper. And we didn't have a chance then to go see it. But it's still there. It's just like it was when it was built. The state has kept it. They've got a lot of stuff up there in Virginia to see. It's like it was way back when. Well, I don't know that y'all know about most of these, I guess, as much as I know about Nicholas and Ortilla.
What transportation?
Transportation's wagon or buggy.
What I'd want to know, did your brothers pick on you because you was the little sister?
Yeah, they weren't mean to me, or Sam.
Because Trilby says she never had any of her brothers ever be good to her.
They never were mean to me. They didn't dare be because they'd have got stick laid on them. But anyway, they used to let me play baseball with them. It was just the 2 of them, and we had a smokehouse, and the batter would stand right in front of the door of that smokehouse, and that smokehouse was a catcher. If they missed the ball, it hit that door, and when I played with them, I had to play way out in the field. They would run my legs off chasing the balls for them. And when I had my chance at bat, I just couldn't bat it very far. Of course, they put me out. I just hit it once, and that was it.
And the other kids were bigger, weren't they?
Yeah, they were all, most of them. Well, Lee and Harvey were gone when I can remember home life. Mark and Carl and Sam had a room in that house. I don't think I've got the picture of that original house that we had over where they're building the jail now. It had 2 rooms at the front, and Mark and Carl and Sam had one, was their room, and Liz and Ed and I had the other one. And it had in the back of it, those 2 rooms, we call it the hall. It was just a wide room, I guess about 10 feet wide, that went clear across through the center of the house.
Yeah, they called it a dog trot.
Yeah, they had that over there, Lamp Passes, that old rock house that's still there. It's I can remember it when we went over there when Grandpa Bean died. It is not Mark Bean, it's now. We went that was a trip. We left here at Kerrville early in the morning. He died, I think it was 1920, either 1919 or 1920. Sam, Mark, your father had the car that he left here when he went in the Navy.
Where are you gonna sleep? She's talking about Papa's car.
I'm listening.
Okay, you listening? Okay.
He left his car, an old Ford. Of course, those old Model Ts, when it was raining, you had to put up these curtains, plastic curtains around the edge or something. They weren't plastic then, they were made out of stuff kind of like plastic. And it was rainy that morning when we left, and we put those curtains. It was in January and it was cold. And Aunt Tom's in, Polly and I sat in the back seat. We had on all our underwear, long underwear, and overcoats, and then we had blankets that we wrapped around our legs, to keep warm. Because there's no heat in those cars. And those old curtains didn't fit very good. There was rain would get in between the cracks. It was cold. Sam drove and Mama rode in the front with him. Took us all day long. We didn't get to Lamp Passes that night. It must have been 9 o'clock. It was way after dark. Of course, the roads then, they didn't have any, some of them had gravel. We went through Fredericksburg and then went to Llano, was where we went to, and then turned up toward Lamp Passes. It took all day and that long at night. It was more than 12 hours, I think, we were on the road.
And look how fast you can get to Llano now.
Yeah.
We went and picked him up at Llano.
Did
That's
you?
halfway between Georgetown.
Yeah.
How long did it take us, Will? An hour.
You didn't go to pick up, you went to pick up me, not him.
Well, yeah, her. From him, from his daddy. Well, anyway, y'all's both there.
Yeah.
They might like to know how you kept cool in the summertime.
We did
Now, can
this,
we
had
have
a
some?
fan we used. We didn't have anything electric then. And just left the doors open and windows, like we're sitting out here now.
And kerosene lamps to see by.
Yeah, had kerosene lamps. We, even after we were over there at the farm, we didn't have electricity there till during the Second World War. And they had the airport out there, and they had the Navy cadets they were training, and they got out there at that airport. They put electricity out there, and it was 2 or 3 years, I guess it's 1950, before we had it there at the farm. So we could get rid of our kerosene lamps and have electric lamps.
Even after
lights.
what Mom and Daddy added on to our house, and we stayed in the garage while they was doing the house. Even after that, when I was working, and we used kerosene lamps, and us kids thought that was so much fun. Mama didn't think it was too much fun, her trying to cook out there in the garage, but we thought it was a lot of fun to go back to like when they didn't have electricity.
It was rough. Mama used to have to cook for the thrashing crew when they came through to thrash the oats about 25 or 30 men that she cooked for. Lord, she had great big old pots on the stove. The pan she made her light bread in, it was about this big around, and it went down like this, had the sides sloped, and it was about that deep in the middle that she'd cook always 6 or 8 loaves of bread at a time. It was a hot job in summer.
What did y'all do after when you went, like, at night when you wanted to go to, after the lights went out? I don't know.
We went to bed, we were so tired. I don't know. Thank you, Lord. Everybody was tired because everybody worked.
And God had to get up real early too the next morning, didn't he?
Yeah.
So you never stayed up late at night?
Seldom ever. We always went to bed early. And Carl and Sam, I remember them best because what they did on the farm was they were the closest to me. The older ones were gone. And my brother Mark was out and gone after he came back from the Navy. He was not there. So I dwindled down just to
Yeah, but I dropped it.
maybe 3 of us were left at home. My sisters were married and gone, but there wasn't much. All the older ones used to, sometimes on weekends, they'd have music. Liz played the piano, and Lee played the fiddle, and Harvey the background. Either banjo or guitar, I don't remember which he played. They used to have music on weekends. And they'd get together at somebody's house, sometimes it was ours, but generally somebody else's where the girls lived if they wanted to see. Or
Well,
lodges
How did you meet Uncle Street?
at the post office. That's when it was on Water Street there. The train used to come in at nighttime, about 8 o'clock, and they fixed up the mail at night. The workers worked there when it came in. Old man Tarver hauled it from the train down to the post office. And
Tom Tarver?
yeah, Tom Tarver.
He's my uncle to my cousins.
Sure enough. I remember him real well. He was a great big fat man.
What
And
was
I
the-
could tell you a story about him. One time, he went over to Fredericksburg with several others to the fair over there, horse races and all. They went downtown, and that time that wide street was just sand, dirt street.
That's something.
And they had been drinking, Tom had, along with others, were drinking beer, and they were feeling real smart. And they went downtown for something, I think at noontime or sometime, and he got out in the middle of that street, and he commenced kicking up the dirt, and he says, "I'm the biggest bull that ever bellered." First thing you knew, some big old Dutchman came out there and he kicked up the dirt. He says, "I'm the biggest bull beside the burn house." They said he knocked Mr. Tarver down. So that bunch, they got out of there.
Yeah, I bet you would, because you don't mess with those Germans in Fredericksburg.
That was a story that came back about him. Mr. Hamilton was one of them that was with that bunch. They used to go fishing together, hunting and things like that. Several of those, some of the Sweet Elms and some of the Petersons, a couple of them.
That's something that Fredericksburg made that street so wide. Nobody else had sense enough to do it, but they made it great big wide.
Yeah, that was their main street. It's a highway through there, and I don't know why this bunch in Kerrville want to change Main Street, because it's a highway through Kerrville. It's 27.
And how they messed up water, you gotta wiggle in and out.
Yeah, that Water Street was 27, but it got so much traffic and there wasn't any way they could widen it there in town without tearing down some of the buildings, so the traffic was put over onto Broadway and onto Main. And I think it ought to stay like it is now. If they mess it up like they did Water Street,
Yeah.
that's gonna, the traffic's gonna.
And they're not getting any more downtown
Oh,
than it was.
it's, I don't know. I don't think much of some of the people that's taking over and running things.
No.
They're very,
What stores were there when you was a little girl?
there was Shriners there where it is now, and then back down this way on Water, corner there where, you know where Riders used
Yeah.
to be. That was Noel's store, and it was a general store. They kept food in there, and they kept stuff for feed for horses and cows and things, and then they had material and stuff like that, and I think they had shoes. And then, I don't remember anything else. The furniture, Fawcett's Furniture was there when I was a kid, in that block, and Hankey's Meat Market.
Yeah, 'cause Wolfmuller's weren't there yet. They moved from over on Shriner to there later on.
Yeah, they, there was a bakery there, I think, before Mr. Wolfmuller had it, but I'm not sure about that.
I had an uncle that was a baker that worked for Wolfmuller's when he was around there on Shriner, one of Grandpa's brothers. That
Yeah.
before I was born, they said he worked there.
Uh-huh. I remember.
Well, did Burnett's have their shoe store when you
Yeah.
was little too?
Yeah, and they had that big old plastic horse in there, or however it was, whatever it was made out of. Every time we got on that street, well, I wanted to stop and look at that horse. I thought it was so pretty. I always had a heart.
Burnett's store, Milford, and I was talking about it, it had a special smell about it. you
Yeah,
know,
it was a leather and
That
stuff
sort
they
of
kept
smell.
in there.
Like, and
Because they kept saddles and all that kind of stuff like that.
and Cheney's had that taxidermy and ice cream and everything all mixed together. It had an odd smell
Yeah.
too.
See, they started out in a little store there right where that camera shop is now.
Did they?
It was just a narrow building there that they had there. That's where they started with their ice cream, stuff like that. And then they moved on to the corner and had that with their street work there every winter. Helped Harold, Mr. Cheney with their skinning out deers and that taxidermy, curing those hides and things. And Miss Cheney made the jackets and things that they sold.
Oh, did she?
She was real good at that. That was I remember, we were in their store when there was a killing across the street there at the Blue Bonnet on the corner. One of those feuds up around Ingram.
Yeah,
Mountain Home.
when the Henderson boy killed Hope.
Yeah, that's who it was, I think.
Yeah, these kids they're descendants of some Hopes.
Or they,
And Hillary's, grandmother was a Hope?
Mhm.
So Aunt Laura's.
Great grandma.
Great grandmother was a Hope. So Aunt Laura's name is Aunt Laura Hope mostly.
well, I'll say.
But we don't know,
So was his mom.
yeah, I don't remember where those Hopes ever went or come from. There was that Hope Funeral Home. I don't know whether it was the same people or
They
not.
came from Arkansas. They started Oak Hope, Arkansas.
Yeah, their descendants started Hope, Arkansas, where Clinton come from.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's supposed to be some kin to Bob Hope too. And their grandpa's picture looked kind of like old Bob.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
I never knew, well, I never knew any of those people, the Andersons or all those Merritts and different ones that lived up there, but their names were familiar, knew their names. you
Yeah,
know. We were in Cheney's store when that happened. And I think Mary Ann and Jack Betty were just little kids, as I remember. I don't know. Well, we didn't know what was going on over there. Somebody came across the street and told. We left. We didn't know to be
You know,
around
that-
there. If there's any more shooting, that was enough. And then after that, it was a long time after that, all that Preacher Hill's boy is still there at Ingram. He killed a man between Curly and Ingram.
You know, Johnny Hill.
Yeah.
Never did a thing to him, and then he become the justice of the peace. And
They didn't get by because he was the preacher's son. And he was a good witness that the dead man couldn't tell his side of it.
So, there's a lot of things happening at Kerrville.
Yeah, it was. But it was, things were sure a different thing.
Yeah, Marla, when she moved to San Antonio, she said, when you get to, every time she turns on TV, well, there's something else bad happening in Kerrville. She said, more things happening in Kerrville for our size. All that slave ranch business and everything.
And they got by.
Oh, yeah, old Wesley Sr. didn't get a day.
And that girl that took a hand in it, she was into it when she was her husband.
Yeah.
They never did even bring her to trial or anything. And I don't think that young fellow was in prison anytime, was
Not
he?
very long.
Short time.
Yeah.
That was horrible what they did to that poor thing.
Well, and they may have done a lot more people. I imagine they
Well-
did through the years, those people coming from Mexico probably. They never knew what happened to them.
What did they do?
Well, they tortured a fella until he died. There was probably no telling how many things they did.
Yeah,
Why did they torture him?
they just didn't like him.
Just been like him.
Did they want
Did your daddy ever tell you that story about what almost happened to him up there? When he was in high school, Warren Martin told him and this Forrest boy said, why don't y'all go up to Ellerbrox and shear sheep for Wesley. So Mark went up there and never sheared a sheep in his life, and they worked all day long. They come home, I never saw such a tired boy in my life. And he just fell in the floor because he said, Mama, I worked all day, and he gave me 25 cents. So I told Mark, I said, don't you dare go back up there because he's just too crazy to go back. So Mark promised me he wouldn't go back. Well, that's the last we heard of it. So then when all this come up, well, Mark said that the hair, the hair on his back just bristled up when he thought about it, because he told me that I told him not to go back up there, but when they went and told Mr. Forrest about what had happened, he put Mark and the Forrest boy in the car and took him back up there and to complain about paying those boys so little, and Wesley Sr. got his gun after him and told him to get off his property right now if they didn't want to die. And Mark wouldn't tell me because I told him not to go. And he said it scared him to death what could have happened. Because see, old Lester wanted him to come back and work up there. Well, no telling what would have happened. And no telling how many boys went to work up there and never came out.
That's right.
Crazy people, really.
You know, like we live right next to the old ranch house that run the KKK in Kerrville. And a couple years ago they found an old chest full of KKK ropes.
Yeah, that was the one that found it, Charles Lewis. You know, his grandpa was the head of the KKK, and Charles said he found a chest with all those robes in it.
Yeah.
They found that in the old house that's down the street.
I never did hear much about.
Y'all got you got the hanging tree in front of y'all, across the street from y'all's
The hanging
house.
tree that the KKK that killed all those guys on.
But I don't know if KKK ever killed anybody in Kerrville. I never heard of it,
You
really.
used
They
to be able to
tried
see the rope marks.
Because they all said it was kind of a little club.
Yeah, I don't remember ever anything happening
You
here.
can still see some road marks on it.
Holy God.
You ready? You getting tired?
Mm-hmm.
You tired of sitting?
What the
Those
jails.
nurse that killed all those babies in prison.
Oh, yeah, that old Janine Jones, yeah.
I never heard about her.
Yeah, you do. It was right down there at the Fine Medical Center. Right down the street
And
from
newborn
us.
babies. She killed.
That wasn't. They
She
finally
killed
sent
a
her
bunch of
up.
them.
Yeah, she's in the pen. Every time they try to get her out, she doesn't get out.
Yep,
She killed a bunch of babies.
Yes.
Newborns. Why? The ones that were just coming in the hospital.
And there's something, there was one they
She
didn't
think
even
it was
try
her.
her on. That was that little boy that was 7 that died. And he was a little boy that was just really severely retarded and looked
Yeah.
like he was a baby.
Mhm.
And they didn't even try her on him, but he died. And I know she just thought he'd
Yeah.
lived long enough, little Jimmy
That's right.
something.
God,
There's
what
been-
I didn't do
It's
it.
And you know, across the street from, in our neighborhood, we had one, back when, before we moved there, years ago, there was that Dr. Carson that lived there, and they said somebody drove up and carried him off one night, and he never did show up again. And that was right there in our neighborhood, and we had so many suicides in our, one right across the street on the corner, and then back behind us
What did they
too.
do?
They just, you just would kill themselves in our neighborhood there for a while. I mean, through the years, been out of, well, how many on our blocks? I don't know what it is about our neighborhood. It looks fine.
I mean, did you see him actually shooting himself?
No, but I just know the stories of how it all happened. You know, the
Oh,
years
that never happened since you were there?
One lady, oh,
Jack
twice,
Rope's house.
twice, huh?
Did
Jack
you
Rope's
hear the
house, he
shots?
killed himself and was there, living there.
Yeah, and then right behind us, that other house where Lucille Sanger and them used to live, a woman went out in her yard and killed herself. No, that was down the street, when the yard, but the woman back behind us was on her bed, and we talked about, looked like she'd gone outside, it would have been as messy. And then but what, up behind us, up there on the corner behind us, well, Ned and Susie Estes moved up there, and I think it was them or was somebody else that moved there. I went to visit them anyway. And they said, you know, there's this stain on the living room floor that we just can't get up. And I kept my mouth shut because I wanted to say, I bet that's where that guy was when he shot himself.
Yeah. This fella killed himself up the street here last year. I didn't know what happened. I saw the police came roaring by in the ambulance, and afterwards they said he shot himself. He was sick.
Yeah, didn't want, just too sick to live, I guess.
Yeah, I think he had emphysema, and it got to the point where he just couldn't take it anymore, I guess.
That's like poor old Dr. Packard. I've always wished they'd just given him some pills or something, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of just took everything away from him, and he jumped out to the hospital.
He killed himself? He jumped out of the hospital window?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's my mom.
He was our doctor.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, this
He has a
thing's
picture of
happened
him
right
in the
here.
hospital room.
As they did back when I was a kid.
Over on children.
Ken Baker was always either slicing somebody up, and he killed somebody too, I think.
My daddy used to say that they had that bad Baker blood not to mess with them.
Yeah.
And Roy Glenn had wasn't too far from our house, and Daddy's cow got loose and got up in Roy's field. And Daddy come running home. Oh, Roy had clipped him with a hoe on the shoulder. Daddy was running away from him. Daddy come home and he says, I told you kids not to ever mess with anybody had that old bad Hen Baker blood. They said Captain Shriner used to hire people to kill people. Hen Baker to kill people, is what I always heard.
Yeah, he may have.
You hear all kind of stuff.
And that old Real that lived out on the divide, those people out there, they swore that he was killing Mexicans all the time. Get mad at them. They didn't do just right or something. They just follow them out in the pasture, send them out to...
I imagine that don't you imagine that's happened to lots of times? Because when those boys, once they left Mexico, nobody knew whatever happened to them.
You know, they found them here the last few years over here around this Medina Mountain.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Every now and then you see where they find this little remains of bones or something. And figure that's what's happened. Somebody killed them. They might have just died and froze to death or something. No way to know. But there's a lot of things happening around here. There's a lot of Indian trouble. Got all these picture shows now, they're brainwashing
Yeah.
the young ones, and Indians were kindly people and they were not. They scout people that need to read the Bandera history that Mr. Hunter wrote. If people read that, they would know better. Because it's just facts that he got from, well, some of them he got way back in around 1920, and there's a lot of people living then.
Yeah.
Lived over there, knew what happened. He got the facts, and it's down in that Bandera history. But you can't get that book anymore, it's not in publication.
What, is that the book we have?
What?
What is that book we have about the Indians? That's a Lehman, a Herman Lehman.
Yeah, her Lima from First
But you-
The whole country was in
They were nomads, they didn't stay anywhere. I know Derry, when he was buying cattle and driving them up to Kansas, he had experience with Indians along the way, and they always gave them cows to eat or something, and that kept them peaceful. But he said they were just awful. And there's a book out now, you can still buy it. I've got one in there if you want to read it. Two Smith boys, they were, that was their name. They were over between, I guess, Blanco and Bernie or somewhere in there is where they lived. The Indians captured two boys, kept them until they were grown. And he's got the facts down. He stayed with one of them. Well, he didn't write the book. He told Mr. Hunter back in 1920s what all happened to him. Boy, they're cruel. As they could be.
What's the name of the book?
He's got it in there. It's Captive Boys, I believe is the name of it. Their name was Smith, and Marion Smith worked for Boss out at the place out toward Rock Springs, Camp Eagle. He and Mary and his wife lived there and kept that place for years, and we knew him real well. And that's where I get my books from him, because they've had several. Well, last year, I think 1994 was the last time they had more books made. I got two in there today that I haven't opened the package yet. Got one out if you want to see it. But they'd stay in a place, according to Mr. Smith. They'd find a place where there's a lot of water, and game coming to that water, and that was their living. They meat, and they killed their horses. If they didn't have anything else, they just kill a horse and eat it. They'd stay in that place until all the game was killed out, and then they'd move on somewhere else. They would continually move all the time. They never did plant anything. They'd find berries, wild berries and things.
Just lived off the land.
Yeah. And they destroy it. They'd kill a horse or cow or something, whatever, eat part of it. some of the old rangers that were back then, they wrote books and they've got the same stories in them. So that's the truth of the business, of course. Well, then, I think they're wanting the government to give them more land or more something. They gave them land in Arkansas and Oklahoma way back there. They didn't do anything with it. I guess they lost it finally. People bought it from them. I don't know, I don't think there's any Indian camps up there now that I know of.
My neighbor was telling about a boy that was so mad because his mama was sort of ashamed of being an Indian, so she said she wasn't. And now he's trying to get him all fixed back so he can get some money from the government.
Yeah.
So, because he wants to be Indian.
Yeah, that's what they're working for now, I think.
I guess we're gonna have to take that boy home. He's just getting some antsy about staying.
You gotta get out to her.
Yeah, Dubs needs to get his hair cut.
Well,
He's going to,
come back
he
again.
went a while ago and they said it'd be an hour and a half, so I don't know whether they'll take
No,
it.
not an hour and a half, 45 minutes.
Well, I thought you said, an hour
45
or
to an
45
hour.
minutes. 45 or an hour.
45 to an
It's
hour.
probably still like that. Down this time of day.
Come back again if you want to.
Maybe I should go later in the day after it's dark.
Go in the morning, like tomorrow at 9.
If I had,
Yeah, I guess I should
could
go.
see and could find things, Julie got things started.